50 years ago, last Wednesday, the Metropolitan celebrated Christmas week in the loveliest possible way with the world premiere of an opera by the composer of Hansel and Gretel, Engelbert Humperdinck. The new work was called Königskinder, the King's Children, and it proved to be even more poetic than Hansel and Gretel. A prince, wandering in humble disguise, believes that in a goose herd he's found the royal heart that should belong to his queen. But the boorish villagers, confident their king would arrive in regal splendor, reject the royal pair. Only the children acknowledge them to be their true sovereigns, and banished from the town, the prince and the goose girl drift into the forest and die in one another's arms, with only the snow to come down and cover them. The only artist ever to sing the Goose Girl at the Metropolitan was Geraldine Farrar, and this is what a contemporary critic had to say. With what exquisite charm Miss Farrar was likely to invest so poetic a heroine, the artist's admirers might have guessed, but it is doubtful if any imagination ever reached the figure which she bodied forth. She was a vision of tender loveliness, as perfect in poetical conception as in execution. Memories of the picture she presented walking through the massive town gates, followed and surrounded by her flock of white geese, will die only with the generation that witnessed it. For those of us who somehow missed out on that enchanting tableau, Miss Farrar recorded 2 excerpts from Königskinder not long after the premiere, 1912 to be exact. Here's one of them, Lieber Spielmann, the pathetic little plea of the broom-maker's child to the town fiddler to lead them to their king and queen. Geraldine Farrar was born in Melrose, Massachusetts. Her father was a professional baseball player. Her mother, beautiful, sensitive, intelligent, ambitious, and dynamic, qualities all possessed to an extraordinary degree by Miss Farrar herself. At 16, she was offered a token contract for the Metropolitan, which was wisely declined. Instead, the 3 Farrars packed off to Europe on borrowed money, soon to be repaid from the daughter's earnings. Miss Farrar made her first appearance in opera at the Royal Opera House, Berlin. The work was Faust, and one only need listen to a fragment of the Jewel Song to know why she took the Kaiser's court by storm. To what you hear, add she was young, only 19, had her own ideas about acting, a figure which did not conform to the old-time prima donnas, ravishing dark hair, bewilderingly blue eyes, and a smile that captivated everyone. One day, the Hofmarschall appeared with a command for her to sing at the palace. She was to wear black or lavender and gloves, since the German court was in mourning at the time. Miss Farrar objected. She never wore black or lavender. These colors didn't become her, and she never wore gloves when she sang. She'd wear white, or she'd not come. The Hofmarschall trembled. He'd see what could be done. You guessed it, Miss Farrar wore white. In 5 years at the Berlin Opera, she sang 11 different roles, one of them Elizabeth in Tannhäuser, a part she repeated in Munich under Richard Strauss. Versatility was an early keynote to the Farrar personality. In all, she did nearly 40 roles. There were people who could sing Mozart or Verdi or Wagner or Puccini better than she, but there was nobody who could do Mozart and Verdi and Wagner and Puccini anything like as well. Her great mentor was Lily Lehmann. Teacher and pupil appeared together at the Salzburg festivals. In Berlin, Miss Farrar sang Zerlina under Strauss, and at the Metropolitan, Cherubino under Gustav Mahler. The Page's aria frequently appeared on her recital programs. From 1903 to 1920, the entire time he was at the Metropolitan, Caruso had every opening night but one. That was the evening of November 26, 1906, when Miss Farrar made her Metropolitan debut. She and Caruso appeared on the same stage many times, but on this occasion, the great man gallantly deferred to the homecoming American girl, and the triumph, as it should have been, was Miss Farrar's alone. Was there ever another Juliet like this? Farrar, the actress, was quite as arresting as Farrar, the singer. In Traviata, she used to let her eyes wander as she read the letter in the last act, and by the time she finished, the paper had fallen to the floor. Haven't we all had letters we've read over and over until they were engraved in memory? In her second act exit in Tosca, all was slow with the music until she got to the door. Then her trailing wrap whisked out of sight as though some demon had snatched it. You knew she was running for her life down that hall. Now, these things didn't just happen. They all came from a great source. She patterned her Violetta after Bernhardt's Camille, and she actually studied Tosca with the divine Sarah. Sometimes things got a little too realistic for certain sensibilities. For instance, the backless costume in Zaza and bits of stage business in the music hall scene. In Atlanta, Miss Farrar was denounced from the pulpit as though she were a Jezebel, but the loyalty of the Jerry Flappers never waned. She was the first opera star to invade Hollywood, and judging from the number of films she made, 14 in 5 years, the most successful. The first, of course, was Carmen, a dozen years, alas, before sound pictures came in. In the presence of Puccini himself, Geraldine Farrar created the title role in the first Metropolitan Butterfly. The part remained her private property as long as she was here. Pinkerton in that initial Butterfly was Caruso. He and Farrar, as we've noted, were quite a team. Individually, they were no drug on the market. Together, they were dynamite. But it's one of their quieter moments we've chosen to recall this strongest box office combine in operatic history, the duet from Manon, which they sang together under Toscanini. Miss Farrar always said she'd leave the opera when she was 40, and she kept her word at the height of her powers and popularity. Her farewell in 1922 was the signal for a demonstration the like of which this old house has never seen before or since. Traffic stopped on 7th Avenue and 40th Street as the stagehands bore her from the theater on their shoulders. Like everyone else in the house, they adored her. Glamour and excitement went with her everywhere. In her curtain speech, she'd said, "I always tried to give the public 100% of what I am and what I can do." Another 10 years of recitals, and she quit the stage altogether. She did emerge to grace these broadcasts as intermission commentator during the season of 1934-35. Her last appearance on the Metropolitan stage was in 1933, when she spoke in the first public campaign for funds to save the opera. She closed that speech with some lines from the finale of Meistersinger, as pertinent today as they were then. "Beware, for dark days are at hand, and threaten German folk and land." Hans Sachs's warning to the people, lest they forget the ideals embodied in their art. And now we come to the part of the program not so much about Miss Farrar as to the lady herself. We know she's listening at her home in Connecticut, and I'm sure all of you join us here in wishing her a happy new year. The appropriate music at this point, of course, would be Auld Lang Syne, but Miss Farrar never recorded that. She did, however, record a number of Scotch songs, and we close with the one she gave most often as an encore. Once she did it for the prisoners at the Federal Penitentiary in Atlanta. Another time, when the power failed at the old auditorium in Nashville, she sat down in the light of one candle stuck on the piano and held an audience of 5,000 breathless while she played and sang Annie Laurie. Her voice, a colleague said, was like herself, beautiful as a ray of sunshine. Today, she's more radiant than ever. Remember, this is the Met's all-time glamour girl who years ago declared, far more important than being a great artist is to become a great human being. Happy New Year, then, dear Miss Farrar, and old acquaintance is not forgot.